Where it stops, no one knows. We're going head into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
Hi, everybody. So earlier tonight, or today, I should say, I did a live about a more recent case that just happened yesterday. Well, during that live, we actually took a complete turn and we started talking about, or the topic changed to the submersible that's missing in the Atlantic Ocean of the 5 people who are looking to explore the Titanic. So I decided to cut that stream in half and put this by itself. So I'm just giving you guys an idea of why you won't see the live chat and what the purpose of cutting it was. But this was also earlier today, and it has all the updates about the submersible that has gone missing. I hope that they find these 5 missing explorers, but man, I don't know. It's scary. And my thoughts and prayers are with the families and friends of the 5 people who are trapped in this submersible vessel lost at sea. Okay, so the submarine thing, has there been an update on, have they found it? Have they found this little, it's the submersive? Let's see. So you guys didn't hear, there was a submersive, it's like a little submarine thing that takes people down to see the Titanic, the wreckage of the Titanic, and they've lost it. Submersive missing. See, we went all over the place today. A submersible known for taking tourists into the deep sea to view the Titanic wreckage has gone missing in the Atlantic Ocean. The U.S. Coast Guard is working with Canada's Coast Guard and armed forces to search for the 21-foot vessel that lost communication with its control center. The 5-person crew submerged Sunday morning, and the crew of Polar Prince lost contact with them approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into the vessel's dive. At a press conference on Monday, the Admiral of the U.S. Coast Guard said search and rescue teams are using aircrafts to scan the ocean as well as sonar devices to detect possible underwater sounds coming from the submersible. Did not disclose the identities of the people on board, but confirmed that officials are in the process of notifying the passengers' families. The missing vessel is owned by OceanGate, a company based in Washington State that offers underwater voyages to explore the remains of the iconic shipwreck from the seafloor. I don't know. Would you guys go on? Would you guys take this little trip? Would you go down there and see the Titanic? Let's see. Submersible missing. Let's see if there's any news clips on it. Listen to them talking.
So we mentioned this about 15 minutes ago. There was a frantic matter now unfolding in the Atlantic Ocean. Apparently, a submarine used to take tourists to view the Titanic has gone missing. Happened off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador in the Labrador Sea in Canada. There are search and rescue crews now combing the icy waters. That is what we believe one of the submersibles looks like from OceanGate out of the state of Washington. Alexis McAdams just starting to dig into the story now. What do we think we know right now, Alexis?
Hey, Bill. Yeah, this all breaking, as you mentioned, just about 20 minutes ago or so. And just in the past few minutes, we just talked to the Boston Coast Guard, who says they're heading up the U.S. team for this ongoing search. So at this time, it's not clear how many people, if any, were on board at the time the sub went missing. The Coast Guard does confirm there is an ongoing and very active search for the Titanic tourist submarine. These small submersibles usually take paying tourists and experts to check out the wreck of the Titanic, and they pay big bucks to do this. At this time, though, as we mentioned, not sure if anyone was on this, if there were any tourists on it. OceanGate Expedition does lead the tours of those submersibles. Experts say it takes you underground to see the wreckage of the Titanic. That's just about 400 miles off the coast. We've not been able to reach OceanGate at this time, but there is information about the trip posted on their Twitter page. It takes hours to get down to the site. I was reading, Bill, it said about 8 hours for this trip. And the company's website does advertise 7-night voyages to see this wreckage. It's priced at about $250,000 to see the site of that famous shipwreck down there at the bottom of the Atlantic, just off the.
All right, so somebody said they did a press conference. So I'm gonna pull that up real quick, see what they say. Was this JB?
On YouTube, officials who are going to be giving this update.
That should be starting pretty quick here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the newest one or no?
Okay.
Hi, my Shmida.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chief Petty Officer Robert Simpson. I'm the Assistant Public Affairs Officer for the 1st Coast Guard District in Boston, Massachusetts. In just a minute, I'll introduce Rear Admiral John Mauger, Commander of the 1st Coast Guard.
The Titanic
District.
went down
I'm prepared to give you a brief,
Newfoundland, Canada,
brief update on the
170
case
miles off
going on 900 miles east of Cape
in
Cod
the Atlantic
in the
Ocean.
search for 5 submariners. We do ask, following his brief statement, we'll be able to take some few questions and answers. We do ask that we give everybody the opportunity to ask one question, and if we have it to go through, we can be able to ask further questions beyond that. We only have time today for about 10 minutes. So he has a brief statement on here, and at this time, I'd like to introduce Admiral John Mauger.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rear Admiral John Mauger. I'm the commander of the 1st Coast Guard District here in Boston, Massachusetts. And in this case, I am the lead for the Coast Guard search and rescue operations for the overdue submersible out near the wreck of the.
Yeah, Clyde, I hope. I don't know. This is the first time watching
Yesterday
the conferences
afternoon,
with you guys. So
we were notified by the operator of the submersible vessel that it was overdue, and it had 5 persons on board the submersible. So we're working very closely at this to look
it real quick so I can make sure that you guys can all see it. I don't know why it's doing this crap. Here we go.
with the crew families on board of those on board the submersible at this time, and we are doing everything that we can do to make sure that we can locate and rescue those on board. So after receiving the call, we reached out to the vessel Polar Prince and began a surface search looking for the submersible. At the same time, we launched a C-130 aircraft to conduct an aerial search, both visual and radar of the scene. We've subsequently coordinated with the Canadian Coast Guard and Canadian Armed Forces to deploy deploy additional assets to the submersible and put sonar in an attempt to listen. The location of the search is approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod in a water depth of roughly 13,000 feet. It is a remote area and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area, but we are deploying all available assets to make sure that we can locate the craft and rescue the people on board. Going into this evening, we will continue to fly aircraft and move additional vessels into the area. In this remote part of our search and rescue responsibility, oftentimes we rely on commercial operators to be the first vessels on scene. And so we've been in touch with additional commercial vessels that are operating in the area, as well as initiating the movement of additional Canadian Coast Guard assets and U.S. Coast Guard surface asset into the area over the course of the next couple of days. Adding to the complexity of this case is the fact that this was a submersible vessel. And so we need to make sure that we're looking both on the surface for the vessel if it had surfaced back to the water, but it somehow lost communications with the vessel. And that's what the aircraft and the surface search vessel is allowing us to do right now. But we're also having to search in the water column. And we're doing that right now with the use of sonar buoys and sonar on the ship that's out there to listen for any sounds that we can detect in the water column. Over the course of the next couple of days, we anticipate adding additional capability to conduct additional search in the water as those commercial assets arrive on scene. Again, our thoughts are with the families and the crew members on board the submersible, and we're working very closely with all U.S. And international partners to provide any capability that we can provide to search for the overdue vessel and rescue the crew members on board.
How do they not have tracking? Like, how do they not have like a little black box or something that would be able to pinpoint their location? That just seems unrealistic to me, especially because of other underwater crafts. Like, it's, what if they run into each other? Don't they have to know where they all are, like planes? If the Quinny, no doubt, right? The irony behind that. And somebody said earlier, like the Titanic's still taking rich people out because, like you have to have a crap ton of money to be able to do that. Yeah, they'd have to have something to be able to do, like with sonar. Oh, maybe it's like Everest. Maybe Dynamite. Maybe. I would think that they like legally would have to have something so that people would know where they were.
At this point, we'll take questions.
There were reports that someone may be trapped in the wreckage of the Titanic. Is this even possible? If that were the case, how much oxygen will these people have?
So in terms of locating the overdue submersible, we have to make sure that we're looking on both the surface using aerial and surface vessels, but then expanding into underwater search as well. Right now, our capability is limited to sonar buoys and listening for sounds, but we're working very hard to increase the capability. We understand from the operator of the vessel that the vessel was designed with a 96-hour sustainment capability if there was an emergency on board. And so we're using that time, making the best use of every moment of that time to locate the vessel.
So can you talk about who was on board exactly? And is there somebody in Hamish Harding of British Explorer who confirmed that he's on board with the family?
At this point, I'm not in a position to confirm the identity of anybody on board the vessel. Out of respect for the families, we're going through the notification process, and more updates will be forthcoming.
Sorry, I may be jumping to something here, but it seems like if that vessel is indeed sitting on the bottom, the 96-hour window to reach it, that this is a race to get some sort of rescue vehicle down to it. Am I correct about that?
That's absolutely part of the overall planning for this search case. Right now, we're focused on locating the vessel, but at the same time, if we find this vessel in the water, then we will have to effect some sort of rescue or coordinating, reaching out to different partners within the U.S. Navy, within the Canadian Armed Forces, and within private industry to understand what underwater rescue capability might be.
That's an interesting thought. Like, did somebody take it? These people are worth a lot of money. And was it known that they were going to be going out there? I mean, CW seems to know that there was like supposed to be a big person on it. Was that from later on? It didn't submerge at the time they should have if the safeguards were enabled, per Hamish's friend on News Nation. All right, I'll pull that up because I'm trying to figure out like what that maybe that, I mean, it's a possibility, or they're just lost and these people pocket all this money instead of actually putting their putting it into making sure that their stuff is good. On News Nation, you said? I wonder if it's this one. If it's not this one, just let me know and I'll find a different one. This is the one I see on News Nation.
A tourist submarine in search of the Titanic is missing, and the Coast Guard is leading a frantic search. Can they find the missing sub in time to prevent another tragic chapter in the story of the famous shipwreck? Welcome to Elizabeth Vargas Reports, earning your trust every night. It was supposed to be the undersea trip of a lifetime, but now a group that set out to see the Titanic
Okay, I think I had the other one. I'm going to look at this one real quick and I'll play the other one.
The same fate as the passengers on the most famous shipwreck in the world. The U.S. Coast Guard is currently searching the Atlantic at this hour, looking for a tourist submarine near the wreckage of the Titanic, which sits 12,000 feet beneath the surface of the ocean. The Canadian military is also assisting. The company that owns and operates the sub is called OceanGate. It has done several dives to the Titanic wreck in the past few years, posting incredible undersea videos and garnering media attention. In a Facebook post sent before this latest mission, a self-described mission specialist with the group said the area was experiencing the worst weather in 40 years, but that they were going to try and dive Sunday morning. OceanGate reported the sub was overdue at 9 p.m. last night. Now the search is on to find where the sub might be and if anyone on board is alive. News Nation's Sloan Glass is in Boston tonight, where the Coast Guard is launching its search and rescue operations. Sloan, what's the latest?
Elizabeth, Sunday morning, we know that a vessel containing 5 people left to see the remains of the Titanic. An hour and 45 minutes later, that sub lost all communication. And now the Coast Guard is searching in an area of the ocean that they call remote. It's 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod with a water depth of 13,000 feet. And time is ticking. There's approximately 70 hours of oxygen remaining on board.
An adventure on the high seas.
I just loved every minute of it.
It has exceeded anything I thought it could ever be.
Titanic is the ultimate dream. A promotional video by OceanGate Expeditions showing the exact mission of the Titanic expedition dive experience that is now missing. It is believed 5 people were on board leaving from St. John's in Canada. The expedition goes to the site of the Titanic, where ticket holders are put to work. Each person pays $250,000 for the voyage. On the 10-day mission, ticket holders go more than 2 miles below the ocean surface.
They are doing jobs that are essential to the scientific research, not just busy work.
Among those believed on board, British billionaire Hamish Harding. chairman of Action Aviation, speaking here previously to Dubai One about an adventure to space.
In space, it's completely silent.
Harding posting on Facebook 2 days ago that a weather window just opened and the team was going to attempt a dive the next day. He said there were a couple of legendary explorers on board. His company posted the next day that Harding was in fact diving.
The OceanGate tech team does an extensive safety check for the next dive.
In its advertising, OceanGate says everyone gets safety briefings, but no previous diving experience is needed. Previous ticket holders had this to say about their dives.
This is not tourism. You're contributing. It's not a ride at Disney. You know, there's a lot of real risk involved and there's a lot of challenges.
Both the Boston and Canadian Coast Guard are looking for the missing vessel with aerial help from a C-130 crew. OceanGate putting out this statement. Our entire focus is on the crew members in the submersible and their families. We are deeply thankful for the extensive assistance we have received from several government agencies and deep sea companies in our effort to reestablish contact with the submersible. OceanGate's website says these missions started this summer with 18 total planned. For this search and rescue mission, officials have to look both on the surface and below the ocean's waters. Right now, their capabilities are limited to sonar technology, which is a challenge considering the amount of debris surrounding the Titanic.
Joining me now is the former nuclear submarine commander,
The one that you guys were
Captain
talking about,
David
Guy?
Marquet. Captain, thank you for joining us here.
This one?
To try to figure out where everything is. I mean, this is truly extraordinary. To take a step back, we're discussing the Titanic again, right? These are folks who got on a highly specialized submarine, wanted to go 2.5 miles deep to view the Titanic, and now we're learning about 100 minutes into that, communications went. Where do you think we are in the process right now of trying to find these folks?
It's a big race against time. You got to find them. And then and hopefully there's some ship or ships steaming as quickly as possible to their approximate location, which we know where approximately they are. They're near the Titanic, with some ability to probably hook the ship or put a cable and connect it to the ship and then bring the ship back up. It weighs about 10 tons. So we can lift that whole submarine up. You don't necessarily need to mate right to it if it is in fact on the bottom.
Can you do that, sir, from the bottom? I mean, again, we're talking about 13,000 feet, 2.5 miles. Let's take best case scenario here, that everyone hopefully is alive, that they're able to locate this. Do we have the capabilities? Do we have the technology and the wherewithal to be able to then pull that thing up 2.5 miles?
Yeah, we should be able to pull that thing up. But the problem is we got to get to connect. We got to get it to connect onto the ship. I don't know how that happens. If it requires sending another ship down there with some kind of a claw that the person is like sees it and connecting it into the other ship, then you got a much bigger problem because we need to get another ship that can go 2.5 miles deep to the location. And like you said, it's 800 miles east of the East Coast, and that's going to take a long time to drive out there.
What do you make of that they lost communication? What does that tell you besides, you know, clearly there's an obvious there, but what are the hopes even, I guess would be a better question, knowing that they have lost communication?
Let's say best case, it's simple. The communication device, something happened to it, it broke. But then in that situation, I'm sure they would just immediately return to the surface. So the problem isn't we lost communication, and they haven't shown up on the surface, and they haven't launched some kind of an emergency device. We call them EPIRBs, but they're emergency. If you're a ship at sea, if you go to the ocean, they all carry these satellite transmitters.
Yeah.
Why? Whether it had one, I'm not sure. Why they didn't launch it, if they did, I don't know. But so it's not just we lost communication. It's lost communication, and this makes us fear for the worst.
Yeah, that was my next question. I mean, you've been obviously spent a ton of time on nuclear submarines. I was fortunate enough, sir, to spend a day for a story, 24 hours on it, sleep on the thing. And one of the things I found interesting was just all of the technologies and the capabilities and the numbers of people who are on our, military craft. This is not a military craft. This is 22 feet big and 5 people on it. What are the capabilities that this has?
Yeah, I don't know technically what the capabilities of the ship is, but I'm 99% sure it's not the capability of a $2 billion nuclear submarine. One of the things on submarines is it's always about redundancy. If we need 1 pump, we put in 2. If we need 2 pumps, we put in 3. And we always have backups to systems and backups and backups and backups. We know Mother Nature is unforgiving. If one of the things I saw in your video was they're using the tourists to do work. If one of them doesn't tighten something quite right and it starts to leak, that could spell doom for the submarine.
They, Captain, according to the website that sort of lays out the specs for this vessel, it says that the crew of 5 has life support for 96 hours. Can you explain how that is and how all of that works in a vessel like this?
Yeah, so humans need certain things. Food, we can go for a long time without food. Water, you can go for a couple of days. They probably have enough water. But you breathe in oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. And we need to both have enough oxygen to breathe in, and we need to be able to remove the carbon dioxide. If the carbon dioxide level gets too high, you'll start getting headaches, you'll feel nauseous, and eventually you'll pass out. And then the crew is incapacitated at this point. So they have enough oxygen for 4 days. Now, if you want to extend that, what we would do is we would put people to sleep. I would say one person may be banging on the hull to try and send a signal that someone might hear, but the rest of you go to sleep if you can, trying to be calm, breathe very calmly, and use as little oxygen as possible.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Okay, so apparently that one's up. There's this one. I don't know if this seems to be the newest one they've posted.
All right, now we want to talk about the who, not just the what, the where, and the how, okay? You got 3 people and 2 crew who are on this. Now, one of them is British billionaire Hamish Harding, okay? I want to bring in Yannicka Michelson. She knows Hamish, and obviously this is a very scary unknown for her. Yannicka, thank you very much for joining us. What do you want people to know about Hamish and what this trip meant for him?
Hamish is an explorer at heart, and this was yet another goal on his checklist of what he wanted to explore down here on Earth and also in space. Titanic was one of the big high points that he wanted to achieve in his life.
Is this supposed to be a very dangerous trip? Is this a situation that you go into knowing the sub can get lost, maybe you don't come back? What do you go into it knowing?
Every single expedition is dangerous, and that's something that Hamish taught me. He's a reason why I started my expedition career as well. Every expedition has the possibility of death, absolutely, and Hamish knows the risk of every single expedition he starts.
How worried are you, and what is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is knowing that they are trapped without the ability of receiving help. This is my biggest fear.
Deep down on the bottom.
There is no one who can reach him at the bottom, and oh, this is terrifying. Hamish is a close friend, his family are close friends, and Hamish is the reason why he believed in me, and this is how I've started my expedition career. I owe a lot to Hamish. I hope he's okay. I hope his crew members are okay and they resurface.
Well, here's what I hope, that you are wrong and their worst fears aren't realized, and there's another variable that will be shocking to all of us. And hopefully it is Hamish himself who's telling us the story. I hope your friend and the others come back. Yannicka, hold out hope until you have reason to know differently. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to NewsNation now.
The rush is on to find 5 people, including 3 very rich tourists trapped in a tiny submarine somewhere in, or tragically perhaps at the bottom of the North Atlantic. They could only have
Three
hours
very
to
rich
live. The
tourists.
submarine was only
There's 5
required to
people
carry
on there,
4
so
days
2
worth
of the
of life
crew.
support, and the Coast Guard believes they are close to running out.
We want to make sure that we have done absolutely everything that we can do to locate their family members and bring them home safe. And so they're first and foremost in our thoughts every moment of this search operation.
The craft lost communications with its mothership off the coast of Newfoundland. The company's website outlines the 8-day itinerary for the trip, setting out from the city of St. John's, Canada, to the site of the Titanic wreck in the middle of the North Atlantic. A weather window had just opened up for the trip. OceanGate has several subs, but only one is capable of reaching the depth of the Titanic wreck site. OceanGate's Titan Submersible is capable of diving to 13,000 feet to view the Titanic shipwreck that sits 12,500 feet at the bottom of the ocean. A full dive to the Titanic wreck, including the descent and ascent, takes around 8 hours. Standards require the sub to have 4 days worth of life support on board. They lost communications what would be yesterday morning, Sunday morning, about 2 hours into the dive, just as it would have been reaching the wreck. With us now, David Marquette, former Navy captain, commander of the USS Santa Fe. David, I appreciate you being with us. Look, you have to sort of take a step back here and realize that there's 5 people very likely, if they are still alive, in the most desperate and frightening situation you could possibly imagine. And they know as well as anybody is that the time's running out. So there is that. You think about this in the real sense. You've been deep underwater. Is there any hope for these folks?
If they're on the bottom, it's tough. The family should prepare themselves for bad news. You got to find the ship, and then you got to get it back up to the surface. 2 very difficult problems.
All right. And look, there's 2 sides to this, right? That these people signed up. Anyone would know that going to the bottom of the ocean is really dangerous. You would never want or wish what's happening upon anybody. But I also think about the U.S. Navy submarines that are now rushing to the scene. They're no longer hunting the Soviet ICBM subs. I think about the PA Poseidon, which is one of our aircraft that typically hunts Russian submarines, is now retasked to search for this. All of the Coast Guardsmen who are now hanging outside of helicopters in bad weather, looking and scouring the North Atlantic. The rescue mission here does not come without risk either.
Yeah, it doesn't. And you could argue what these people are potentially putting other people in risk by their behavior. But look, this is what we do. We have the Coast Guard. And when mariners at sea are in peril, that's one of their missions. They go out to save them.
Yeah, I think about the Coast Guard's motto, unofficial motto: you have to go out, you don't have to come back. And we are all lucky for being able to call upon them in times like this, and that they will put their lives at risk. Just in terms of sort of the fascination with the Titanic, sank in 1912, 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod, 2.5 miles below the sea surface. There was the IMAX movie about it, right? And it was sort of this remarkable thing that we all saw and have all been fascinated by. And now you have people who can pay $250,000 to be able to go down there. Is 2 miles under the ocean's surface really the place for tourists?
Not in my mind. I'm not doing that. Look, there's hundreds of submarines out there, many military submarines. A U.S. nuclear submarine costs about $2 billion, and there's a good reason. If we need 1 pump, we put on 2. If we need 2 pumps, we put on 3. There are multiple redundancies. It's designed to the nth standard, and when things break, we have the crew to fix them. And we stay much shallower than this submarine. It's only a very tiny fraction of submarines are designed to go that deep, and you're building them with a commercial company. I read that they use like a video game controller to drive the submarine.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That's great, but I hope you have like 10 of those in a box standing by in case that one craps out on you. And so I'm not sure this early in this new exploration process that people understand how unforgiving nature, the laws of nature are. And nature doesn't care. We would say nature doesn't care if you went to church today. If you make a hole in the submarine, the water's coming in.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Okay, so C-Dub sent me an article that actually has a video in it that I think is the one that they were talking about.
Also lost and joins us live. David, thank you for being here. Were
Yes,
you on that
this is the right
exact
one.
submarine? And if so, I'm wondering if you can describe
This is just so much. There's so much.
I was. There is only one. It's a homemade thing made by the founder of the company, Stockton Rush. It's about the size of a minivan. It seats 5 people. There's no chairs in there. You're just squatting on the floor. The journey is about 10 to 12 hours to go down to the Titanic, find it, tour it, and then come back up to the surface ship. It is constantly plagued by mechanical problems. This is not unique to their sub. This is all of these Titanic subs. There's only about 5 of them in the world, and they've all had these kinds of mechanical malfunctions, electrical malfunctions.
You experienced one, right, of some kind?
I did. I never got to see the Titanic. I was invited as a journalist to go on one of these dives last year, and we got 37 feet down and ran into mechanical problems and had to come up. But that's typical. They take these millionaires out there for 5 days at a time, so they have 5 chances to see the Titanic. Most weeks they make it only once, or this summer, not at all.
What do you think happened here? From having been in it and having experienced it, and you talk about the mechanical issues, what's your, I know it's purely a guess, but what is your best guess?
I can tell you exactly. There's only a few possibilities. So this thing has 7 different ways to return to the surface, different ways of releasing ballast or inflating air balloons or using the propellers. So there's backups of backups of backups. So if it is not at the surface, then only one of 2 things could have happened. Either it snagged on something, like a big fishing net or even part of the Titanic, or there was a leak, in which case it would implode instantly and it's over. So if you want to look optimistically at it, they lost power, but they have 3 more days of air and they're bobbing on the surface somewhere, and we just can't find them because they don't have power.
Yeah, I found it interesting that the Coast Guard there basically said this is a 2-pronged search. 1, potentially 2.5 miles beneath the sea, or 2, maybe somewhere at the top. And this area is so remote, it's possible.
But one problem with what the Coast Guard said was there's only 3 operating subs in the world that can go to that depth. Okay, so even if they find our sub with the ping, with the sonar, there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. There's no way to bring it back to the surface. There's no way to let them escape. That the hatch, by the way, is sealed with 17 bolts from the outside. So there's no way to escape when you're inside to get out without a crew on the outside letting you out.
You know, David, you talk about these mechanical problems and you experienced it firsthand. I guess it raises the question how they're allowed to operate. You know, this isn't a car driving down the highway. This is a sub going underwater. Are you surprised that this enterprise is allowed to go on, given what you know and what you've experienced?
It's really funny because, so I did this story for CBS Sunday Morning, and we're airing a follow-up this Sunday, and all the reactions were one of 2 things. You couldn't pay me $250,000 to get on that thing, or if I had $250,000, it would be a life-changing event. Very few people actually succeed, even with this company, in getting down there. Maybe 1 out of 5 dives actually reaches the Titanic, but the ones that do say their lives look different now. It's completely mind-blowing to be there at the Titanic. So the people with the money and the thrill-seeking instincts love it.
All right. We'll leave it there. David Pogue, thank you for your time and your...
Okay. All right. I got to regroup. This is nuts to me. One, I would never put myself in that situation, but I am so not a daredevil kind of, what do they call them? Like adventurers or, anything along those lines. I would not do this. Now you're paying $250,000 to go and sit. They kind of showed it here. Let me see if I can go back and find that spot or not.
Perspective, we appreciate it.
They show
We'll be right back after this.
Where they're just sitting on the floor. They're just sitting on the ground. There's not even a seat. You just paid $250,000. You don't even get a seat. And then this guy says that there's 5 of them total, and they all have massive mechanical issues. And he was on one that had to come back up because of it. Yeah, an explorer. I know, and I'm all about like good for the people that are out there exploring stuff. To find new things in the world and in life, I get it, and I get that that's important. What is important about going to see the Titanic? Can anybody explain that to me? Why that would be? He says like people who have been able to accomplish it, it's like life-changing for them. I cannot. You're bolted in from the outside. No. I'm not even big on roller coasters. I used to love them when I was young and didn't care, but this is. They want you to go to sleep in there? He said go to sleep. One person does the banging to try to get like, the signal out there, and the other ones you're supposed to try to go to sleep. What? This gives me anxiety. This gives me anxiety watching all of this. Life-changing because you didn't die. Yeah. Not enough to go down in a tiny capsule. Yeah, no, I have a small obsession with the Titanic. I just don't know if I would actually go dive down to it. I could not do that. Oh, Queen, of course you would. You're such an adrenaline junkie. Of course you would do it. Hold on. Ashley said something. Hi, serendipity. His trip only was to go down for 37 minutes before problems. Yeah. And then other people are still going down after that. Like, that's not even. This shouldn't even be allowed. I just don't understand the point. I mean, I get the fascination. Like, people say, okay, like, it's a very big thing, but what are you actually exploring at that point? There's nothing new there. Yeah, you know how many people's lives they could have changed with $250,000 a piece? One ticket puts you in a different tax bracket. No shit, that's crazy. Not one single chance it ain't happening. I have no reason to ever want to go see it. So success is about 20%. I think that must have to do with like the thrill seeking part of it. Hold on. Delana, were you sending me links from Ashley by chance? So I can put those up, because this is. Oh, I get teeth in here too. That's always nice. Nice teeth. It's not made for consumers. Well, no shit. What's this one? Is this the same? There's only about 5 of them in the world, and they all have these kinds of mechanical malfunctions. And people pay $250,000 to do it anyway. There's backups of backups of backups. Okay. Oh, this is.
This morning, I almost had a panic attack watching you get into that thing. It's so small. How big is it, and how long were you told you could survive in it?
It's about the size of a minivan, but it's a cylinder, so it holds 5 people. There's no chairs, there's no couches. You are sitting on the floor with your back against the curved sides. As I'm sure you've heard, there's 4 days worth of air. There's 3 different systems. There's as your previous guest referred to, there's a scrubber, the same ones they have in spacecraft, that converts the carbon dioxide you breathe out back into oxygen. If that fails, there are these, they look like fly strips. You hang them from the ceiling, that they're backup scrubbers. And if that fails, they have scuba tanks, oxygen tanks, under the floor of this thing that you can pull out. But there's no food and water apart from the one sandwich and the one water bottle you bring with you. All there is by way of a toilet is basically a big Ziploc bag.
Oh my gosh. All right. At one point when you were on the sub, you lost communication with the mothership on the surface, only for about 2.5 hours, right? And what did you do when you lost communication? Did you just drift around or what happened?
I should be clear on this. So they never lost contact with the sub. There's a ship on the surface that can send short text messages down to the sub beneath the sea. There's no GPS underwater. There's no radio underwater. So all they can do is send these little text messages relative to the Titanic. It might be right over there. It might be right over there. They can't see anything. There's no windows except a tiny round porthole at one end. So up on the ship, the control room looks down and says, it's off to your right by 100 yards. They direct the sub. So what happened for a few hours last summer was during one of these dives, the ship on the surface was giving directions to the submersible on the seafloor that were wrong. Something went wrong with the directional system, and they spent the whole day looking for this Titanic, never found it. And so these passengers who'd paid $250,000 a head had to come back to the surface having seen nothing.
So I got to get your reaction when you hear that they've lost this sub, that they lost control and communication of it at an hour and 45 minutes into the descent, which I think that's about how long it takes to get down there, or no?
That would be about
joining us
halfway
now,
down, two-thirds of the way down.
Two-thirds of the way down. And then by 9 p.m. Sunday night, at launch Sunday morning, they reported it missing. What do you imagine is happening on board?
So first of all,
aside from panic, I mean, I just can't, you were on.
Yeah. This is the only submersible in the world still operating that can go to the Titanic. So it is a one-off. It is a one of a kind. There's not, it's not like an iPhone made by the thousands. There's one of it made by this one man who's had experience building airplanes and submarines, Stockton Rush. He runs the company. And so, going in that, it's not going to be Delta Airlines level safety. You sign a waiver. It says, these are all the different ways I could die. I mean, they outline it for you. So there's so many mechanical problems and weather delays. I mean, on my dive to the Titanic, we only got 37 feet down when there was a mechanical problem and we had to come back up to the surface. And that's typical. I mean, they take tourists out for a week at a time. And so far this summer, they've barely made it to the Titanic even once, even though during each week they have 5 potential days to dive. So you are well aware that there's an improvised quality, there's a dangerous quality, that it's something that is not made for consumers.
Is there a way, you said there, is there a way to radio for help if you're on that sub?
There's no way to radio for help. There's no, radio waves don't travel underwater. So there are 2 systems of communicating with the submersible. One is every 15 minutes, it sends out a ping, an audio ping. Sound waves travel through water. So the surface ship picks that up and says, okay, they're still alive. The second way is while they're within sound range, they can send little text messages, short text messages that say, usually it's, the Titanic is 100 yards to your right, that kind of thing. They've lost both of those signals. That's not what happened last summer. This is really terrifying. I mean, if you think about it, there could only be one of 2 things that have happened. So if the power went out, then they couldn't send pings and they couldn't send texts, but maybe they came to the surface and they're bobbing away someplace. I will say they have 7 redundant ways to get to the surface. They have 3 different kinds of weights they can drop. They have propellers that push them up. They have airbags they can inflate, 7 different ways, and several of them work even if the power is gone. So if they are alive, they should have been able to get to the surface using one of these methods. Unless one of 2 bad things have happened. One is that they got snagged on something, maybe one of those ghost nets, the big fishing nets that fishermen cut loose, or maybe a piece of the Titanic, or the worst case scenario is that there was a leak in the pressure vessel, and that would be an instantaneous implosion.
Okay, so he basically is saying the same thing in that one. I think I have one more that Ashley sent. Or maybe two more. I'll play these just because this is just so great. I don't even have words. There's just not words. There's no words. I can't imagine. I'd be so freaking scared. And Miss K said it. Yeah, if you're going to be down there with somebody, at least you've got these really intelligent. Well, I mean, I don't know. Intelligence is kind of two-sided here, because how intelligent are you that you want to go down in this little tiny thing that you don't even have a seat and there's no way to communicate with people? And then there's intelligent, like this guy has massive amounts of degrees and has done some really important things with his life. I mean, I get it, but not me.
He is a former investigator over at the National Transportation Safety Board to sort of walk us through what we know here. Charlie, good to have you. The U.S. Coast Guard just released that the crew that was following this suddenly lost contact with them about 100 minutes in, an hour and 45 minutes in, yesterday morning after the Titan, which is what this vessel is known as, suddenly went underwater in search for the Titanic. Let's go through step by step here, Charlie. If they lost contact 100 minutes in, what does that tell you?
Well, something, clearly a technical problem of some nature. I'm not very familiar with the design or system details of this submarine, but basically you're under tremendous pressure at that depth. As you can see there, 5 people on board. Yeah, the pressure is the primary threat issue. There also could be external threats. You've got some deep water swordfish and other stuff like that could potentially impact the communications and structural cables attaching the submarine. So, there's a variety of potential threats.
You talk about pressure. I guess this is very much like a plane, right? You need cabin pressure when you go up, or a submarine needs pressure when it goes down. When we talk about hopefully rescuing, take it from there.
It's significantly different than that. When you're in an airplane and you go up, you have less pressure, and you have to pressurize the interior of the vessel in an airplane to maintain a cabin altitude and proper oxygen levels. When you're going down below the surface of the ocean, just like when you dive down to the bottom of a swimming pool, there's extreme pressure that builds up from the water overhead, and that tries to crush anything below it. And so these vessels are built to withstand that pressure. Of course, you can't have system and structural failures as with any mechanical system. So, there's also external threats, that the various marine life that could get entangled or attack the connection between the vehicle and the surface. So, there's the design threat is the pressure from water trying to get into the vessel and crush the vessel. So that's the threat trying to design against.
Is the question now, Charlie, whether they have it or don't have it, don't have pressurization down there and thus have oxygen?
Well, you don't really need pressurization inside the vessel, although I'm sure that's one way that you could also protect against the vessel being crushed. But again, I'm not familiar with the design element of this particular vessel. The primary threat is the pressure causing a structural failure and water getting inside and the people drowning. Obviously, that's the first concern.
Yeah. According to the site here, you can see OceanGate is the country involved. They say there is life support for 5 on board for 96 hours. It's believed that contact was lost Sunday morning. So we're now probably going on, what is that, around 30 hours. What can be done here, say, in the next 60 to 66 hours?
If the vessel is not tethered and they don't have a means of retrieving it, then short of the vessel itself being able to propel itself to the surface, they would have to get another means of retrieval down to them to bring them up as soon as possible.
This is 2.5 miles below at least the Titanic, and we should stop and point out they were going down there to try to get a glimpse of the Titanic. This is a company that has done this in the past, that runs tours, as you heard Sloan mention there, $250,000 a pop to to get to do what is really a once in a lifetime opportunity to see one of the most famed events of the 20th century. And that's what brought people to this moment. But you know, going forward, Charlie, when we talk about retrieving them, this is, as I mentioned, 2.5 miles down, 2.5 miles deep. Is there any sort of mechanism upon which a private company or the Canadian Coast Guard or the United States Coast Guard has the ability to retrieve these folks?
The United States Navy has what they call soup salve, which we used to partner with every now and then to attempt to recover aircraft wreckage and other vehicle wreckage under the surface. Navy soup salve and the Navy assets are among the premier entities that might be capable of retrieving that. And I'm sure, given the lives that are at stake, that the U.S. government and private industry are exercising all of their options, but they're running out of time. So somebody's going to have to do something really quick with a lot of money and a lot of energy to try to get this done as soon as possible to save lives.
Is there the hope that communications can be restored, or Charlie, do we believe at this point that all communications have been cut off?
There's always hope. You got some smart people down there on that vehicle, and you got a lot of smart people on the surface attempting to engineer away. God's blessed us with a lot of engineering technology and capability, and I'm sure our country and other countries are going to exercise every resource that they have available to them to try to save this crew.
Charlie, you've gone in plenty of times, I take it, when there have been tragedies and learned from them and sort of put the puzzle pieces together to try to figure out what happened and maybe to hopefully prevent things from going forward. If you were the lead in this case, not looking at something from after the fact, but right now, whether you're Canada, the US, this company, or some sort of joint venture, what would you do? Like, how do you game plan this out? How do you try to save these folks? What could be successful?
The first thing you do is have some subordinates contact all of the best technical entities in the world that are associated with it. And then while that's running in the background, you establish communications with the company that is responsible for this vessel. And you get all the facts as soon as possible from them. And you try to establish a game plan, and then you act on that game plan. There's no budgetary concerns. There's no logistical concerns. You just do whatever is necessary to get these people back.
Charlie, I don't mean to cut you off, and it's not your fault, but I'm going to point out, I don't really hear specifics. Is it because we've never seen something like this before, and thus there's not a playbook or there's not some sort of manual as to how to go about it?
Well, I've done aviation, rail, highway, marine, pipeline, hazmat, space shuttles. Everyone is different. And,
right.
You're not equipped with a playbook for each one that says, here's what you do in this case. You use your engineering judgment and your engineering education to engineer the best possible solution as rapidly as possible.
Okay, so the news guy says, like, you don't have a plan. I mean, that sounds like the most plausible plan for anybody who doesn't know what the hell they're even looking for. You got to figure out the semantics of the whole entire boat itself. What can you look for? What can you get to be able to even find? Like, what's the most likely thing that you're going to see under there? Like, he seemed like he had a pretty decent plan to me. I don't know. I don't know where he would begin to even look for this thing. I know that they have, they're looking to see if it came back up to the top, like if it just floated back to the top and it's just kind of sitting there. Hopefully that's the case. But the other guy was saying like that basically the second option is that it like exploded underwater. If that happened, you're going to have to figure out what are you even going to look for to prove that that's what happened to it. This is just insanity.
I know news media a lot of times wants, immediate action and everybody to know everything, but that's just not how it works. You do the best you can with what you've been blessed with, and then you execute.
Yeah, no, we're trying to be as realistic as possible here. It's an extraordinary circumstance. We're talking about a group that's gone down to try to survey the Titanic 2.5 miles underneath sea, underneath the top of the sea, communication gone. And now the scramble is on to try to find them and save them. 96 hours of life support, says that company. Charlie Pereira, former NTSB investigator. Thank you for joining us, for your time, and we appreciate the insight and perspective.
I lost the other one. Hold on, let me find it. I had one left. There it is. All right, let's see what this is.
To get on the phone, David Concan, an advisor to OceanGate. He's helping with the search and recovery operation. He was actually supposed to be the expert on the dive yesterday, but a client emergency kept him on shore. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. So what do we know? What do you know based on what you're hearing?
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me on. We know that the ship lost communication and contact with the sub yesterday morning. We know that the sub is overdue. We know that we are doing everything possible to reestablish contact with the sub and also to get assets out on site that can find the sub and recover it, whether or not it's able to do so itself or otherwise. So we're moving hard. I've had about 90 minutes of sleep in the last 2 days. For background, I've done 5 prior expeditions to the Titanic. I've led an expedition to the Titanic. I've made multiple dives to the wreck site. And I also led and expeditions that found and recovered the Apollo rocket engines for Jeff Bezos at depths deeper than the Titanic. So that's why I'm an advisor to OceanGate. And what we've been doing on land at their request is finding all the assets in the world that can get to the site and bring our people home.
What is it?
That's what I'm helping with.
What does it mean to be trying to reestablish communication? I mean, is there hope? Does that happen where for a day you can't establish communication and then suddenly you're able to reestablish it?
Yes. I've done 5 deep submersible dives in the Mirrors, the Russian Mir submersibles, and we used to turn off the comms because it was white noise and static, and it was just a distraction. I don't think that happened here, but loss of comms is not a big deal. Loss of tracking is something significant, but we did track the sub and its last known location, so we know approximately where it is. So loss of comms, I'm not excited about that. Loss of location, different story, but we know where approximately it is. It's getting there in the 96-hour window before the occupants run out of oxygen that is the most important factor, and that's what we have been focused on 100% of the time. Like I said, me since yesterday, and I have to say we really appreciate the efforts from the United States government, from the Canadian government, and from the UK government. But the assets to accomplish this rescue are in private hands. And the private sector has been phenomenal. But we are stuck right now because the assets to recover the submersible and find these people are in Guernsey, Channel Islands, UK, the same group, the experts that did the advanced survey of the Titanic last year. They are mobilized. They're sitting on the tarmac at night, ready to go. And we have a ship off Newfoundland that is ready to take them to the site. We need to move. We do not have minutes or hours. We need to move now.
Wait, but why are they sitting? Explain to us, why are they not flying immediately and getting there?
Paperwork.
Really?
Paperwork. Really? That's why I came on your show. I rejected your interview request all day because I was working this problem. But then we got to the situation where we needed to move. So I'm talking to you tonight because we need to move. I don't want to see out of office replies on emails. I want decisions made. We have people whose lives are at stake. We have to move. We have assets that are ready to go, and they're sitting and waiting.
What's the paperwork, though? I mean, is it government paperwork or is it private paper? I mean, because you would think that if it's a paperwork issue, at the least you take the flight, you get them ready to go, right? And then you wait for the paperwork to be signed. But you're telling us they're not even flying yet.
It's government. It's government. Private sector moves very, very, very quickly. Public does not.
Holy crap. Is this guy's... Am I hearing this right? is this guy saying that that they're ready to actually go and do a search, and there's not, the paperwork isn't complete? When is this from? Is this last night or is this tonight? Ashley, you sent this one. When is this one from? Hold on, I'm gonna look. This is from 23 minutes ago? Is that legit? When did it originally air, I wonder? Because, you know, they put their little snippets on way later. That doesn't make any sense. He is calling the government out right now. Oh,
wow. And listen, I don't want to disparage the government officials that are helping because they're doing their jobs, but we need to do it quicker. The private sector is ready. They've been ready for hours. They said yes the minute we contacted them. And I have had about 90 minutes sleep in 2 days. 3 in the morning, my time, on the phone. Yes. What do you need? Yes. We'll put everyone on it. Yes. They're on the tarmac. I sent you photos. They're ready to go. I don't need an out of office reply from the U.S. Navy or someone else saying, sorry, I'll be back on the 23rd. That will be too late. We need this to go now.
Very quickly, if you are able to get there, what is the timing, do you think? It sounds like you know the basic location where it is. How long would it take them to get there and potentially rescue, access, pull, whatever you would do with the vessel?
It's a matter of hours. If we move fast, we can get to the site in 40 hours from where the ship is now. If we get the assets flown from Guernsey Channel Islands overnight, we can have them mobilized on the ship in a day, and we can get there inside the window. Now, it's at the end of the window, but we can get there inside the window where there's still oxygen submersible, and that's what we want to do.
All right. David Concannon, I want to let you get back to work. Thank you very much for coming.
Holy crap. Okay, I'm going to play this TikTok that Wolfie just sent me. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. Ah, crud.
Vessel that has not been an experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign? Oh, take your shoes off. That's customary. Okay. Wow.
Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button. That's it. It should be like an elevator. You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet, sort of. And yet I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on! It seems like this submersible has some elements of MacGyver-y jerry-rigness. I mean, you're putting construction pipes as ballast.
I don't know if I'd use that description of it, but there's
an experimental submersible vessel that
That's the guy who said that he had gone on it, right? And that he only made it down part of the way and then it had mechanical issues and had to come back up. Isn't that guy? And this is from him 5 months ago, where he's saying that, here, you're basically signing that, that shit's probably going to go wrong and you're just going to have to deal with it. I cannot believe this is reality. Did you see how that was so rigged by just pieces of stuff, and they're paying so much money? It was a game controller. Oh, I can't. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I am so nervous. I don't know if these people are ever even going to be found. My dog apparently agrees. This is, I literally don't have words. Yeah, from Camper World parts. And then this guy's like, yeah, where do I sign? I'm totally down. I want to go. I can't. Oh, goodness. It's absolutely terrifying. I don't understand this at all. This is all privately owned. The government has nothing on private sector. If government is going to look to, then it's a separate thing. I'm wondering if it's paperwork, one, for where it's located, and two, so that they can be involved in the actual, like the actual search. I don't know how to say that correctly. Like authorized to actually have the information that they have, so they know what the government knows. Does that make sense? So that they're like in the know, and so it's like red tape to be able to give them the information. I could not do this. Personal rescue tax money should not pay for his rescue. Well, I'm wondering, like, this guy who built it has obviously got massive amounts of money. Where is his team? They're not on the boat with him. I don't know. I have to hop off. I mean, I planned on a really short live with the information that we had on that case, and now this has just got my mind. My anxiety is so high right now. I cannot imagine being trapped inside of that thing. Yeah, I'm sure he's got a whole personal team of people that are like, no, let us out there. We're gonna go right now. I'm gonna go like take some like deep breaths. This is literally giving me an anxiety attack that these 5 people are trapped in that tiny thing. You saw the 2 men sitting there, 2 men sitting in there, and it was already so freaking tight. I can't. I could never do that. I could never ever do that. You don't think the Navy's gonna help? Hi, the real GG. Yeah, 100%. It will have arms or anything to be able to free that sub, or will they both potentially just get stuck? I can tell, C-Dub. Yeah, I don't know if there's a submarine that has the capability of. It doesn't look like they have the submarine that has the capability of being able to grab this type of thing and bring it back. So, all right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I thank you guys. Hopefully, I hope these people are found safe. Hopefully, they're just bobbing on the top of the ocean somewhere and they're found very, very soon. I don't know. It was crazy. I keep saying that over and over again because I really just don't have other words. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for being here. Whew. All right, C-Dub, keep me posted. I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to you guys later. I leave Wednesday, and then we'll be at competition. So hopefully maybe I'll have a few minutes to take a little drive, but we'll see. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.